section, so you go research that and give them the information they want. Another one of our big categories is assorted reports on the environment. So this will be stuff where they'll ask like, hey, I want the IP address of every box. So you go around and give them the IP address of every box. Stuff like I've had the MAC address of every box. There's vulnerability scans where they want the vulnerabilities of every box. Um, those are the ones you see pretty commonly, but you can get asked anything that's like, check all the systems, and then you're like, these systems we found stuff, these systems we didn't. And so for those you wind up writing up a report, I'll show an example of what a report looks like later. Then sometimes they ask us to create policy. Most common is a password policy. So it's a document that basically you write out the outline of rules for your company. So you're like, everyone is required to have a password that is 10 characters long. They're supposed to have uppercase and lowercase characters. They need to have at least one number and at least one special character. Examples of good passwords, examples of bad passwords. You put general advice in those as well, like don't use the word password and password, and various stuff like that. The example I have here is a new admins inject, which is an example of the types of ones where you assign tasks to teammates. So this one is asking to establish SSH keys for a new admin and an account for that admin on all of the SSH services we had in this particular system. So for that, I would go to someone like, say, Ethan, and be like, hey, Ethan, I know you're handling our SSH services. I need you to set up an account. I need it to have this name. I need it to do SSH keys. When you have it done, let me know, and I'll write up a quick note saying, this is done, and submit it. Note for stuff like SSH keys, that will continue to be checked throughout the competition, and those points will continue to go into this inject. So that can also add to, like, if a service is down. So, like, we had times where SSH was down when they were checking it for the inject as well. So if it's down while they're checking it for the inject, then we lose the inject points on top of just the service points. So it's really important for ones like this that add a new feature, or we've even seen them have us set up and add a new service via injects, that we keep those up because those get extra scoring on top of just service points. The other thing I'll say that I kind of alluded to earlier, time management's really important because you will have a bunch of these injects at once. Generally, the amount of time you're given for each inject is somewhere between an hour and 3 hours, but I've seen injects pop in with as little as 30 minutes, and there are times where they give us an inject at the beginning of the day that they're just like, hey, you have all day, have this done by the end of the day, and if you forget about it, then you have to do it when you're slammed with like the drops of like 4 or 5 they do near the end of the day. Any questions so far? Nope, okay, I'm gonna keep moving then. Alright, so the next big inject handler task is Orange Team. So, what Orange Team is there will be this random phone sitting somewhere in the room, or depending on what competition you're doing, I have done Orange Team via Discord channels before, so you'll just sit in the Discord channel for the entirety of the comp. And what'll happen is there will be a random white team person, or if you're at nationals, it'll be a sponsor that pops in and is like, hey, I need you to reset my password, or I need you to tell me what my password is, or can you tell me the price of this product from this website you have up? And so when these come in, these become the most important tasks going on because you are being tested on your customer service skills. So they're going to give you a task. You're going to write down what that task is. And if you can pull it up on your laptop, then you do the task. If you can't, you quote unquote put them on hold for a second, run the task over to one of your teammates, and then you keep chitter chatting with them until that task is done. Then your teammate will come back. You talk with them, have them check and make sure that the task worked. Most commonly, we see passwords. So you give them the password. I know giving passwords over the phone is a bad security practice. I can confirm it is a horrible security practice. However, for the purposes of these competitions, that is how they have it set up because it is easier for them. So you are supposed to give passwords over the phone for the purpose of these competitions. There has been huge debate about it in the past. We asked the guy in charge. That is the way. So don't be scared. You can do that and you will get more points for doing that. Normally passwords would be handled in like an email ticket system in a real company, but they don't set up that infrastructure for these competitions, so they just use phones. You also might run into some very wild calls. For instance, last year we had to calm someone down because of their lost dog. We also had to handle a group who wanted to convert us to Christianity. So be prepared. You might have some wild things. We also had a call that was call in just to hail Hydra, since that was the name of the company we had last year. So be prepared. You can run into literally anything, and your job is to handle it as professionally as possible. So I mentioned earlier that I was going to give you an example of a more like report-oriented inject. So for this example, I have the prompt over here. They had a former admin and they got rid of him, and they're like, oh, but he seems angry, so can you go check and make sure that we got rid of all the accounts and see if there's any odd activity that he may have done had we left one of the accounts. And then having a report by 6 p.m., that's just whenever the deadline was for this particular inject. So over here is the actual inject that I actually stole one from the previous inject handler, so Annie wrote this one, not me, but this is exactly what I would have done. So you see first a thank you for alerting us of the former employee account. That's acknowledging that we are doing this back and forth email format. Then you have something being like, hey, we did the investigation on audit like you told us to, and just a very professional statement saying what you did or did not find. And then when you can, you want to give evidence. So even if they don't explicitly ask for a screenshot, you will get more points from putting a screenshot in if you can. So you'll notice here, we put in some screenshots showing that the accounts don't exist. So we have the alphabetic list here, which shows that the account, which would have been, I don't know how to pronounce this, but D Minizaru is not here because it would have been right in between these two. And then over here, you can see that we searched for the account and it didn't pop up. Then you give another nice little professional, like you're talking to your boss at a workplace and like, hey, let us know if you have any more questions or concerns. And then you sign off. If you guys want to try it, I did grab a prompt. I did the a research style since that's the easiest type to do in this type of setting. If we need it a little bigger, we can do that. So generally for one like this, I'll be given an hour. We can do an hour, 30 minutes, whatever you guys want. And you can write up a little prompt based on this, and I can judge it if you guys want. But other than that, that's kind of all I got. That's the lowdown on injects.
Okay, so do you want them to just submit it and just upload whatever they make to the Defsec Bootcamp channel, and then we can look through them maybe next week?
Yeah.
Because we usually don't have these things go super long, so.
Cool. So, if you guys want, this is your homework. I can post a screenshot in the Defsec channel if you want. Here you go, there's homework if you want to try it. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions? Well, if we don't have any questions, I'll say I usually have a pretty fun time with injects. They do take a little getting used to, and you gotta practice in order to get good at them. I am actively looking to train somebody this next year, so please do tryouts. I would absolutely love to train a predecessor, because, well, I mean, a successor. Anyway,